What's going on, guys, and welcome back to the channel. This is going to be a Spotify exclusive. It's not going to be on YouTube. It's not going to be on Rumble. And for this episode of the World's Okayest Physical Therapist podcast, we're going to be delving into the Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the World's Okayest Physical Therapist podcast. I'm your host, Dr. H. Today's episode and series is going to be a Spotify exclusive. That means there's not going to be any episodes on YouTube or Rumble or anywhere else besides Patreon and Spotify. And of course, this is going to be released on Patreon first, and then Spotify later. Now, today's episode is going to be on inflammation. It's going to be part of a 7-episode series. That's what I'm planning. It might go a little bit longer depending on if there's questions or not that I need to answer. And I can do special segments and episodes just for that content. But today's focus is going to be on inflammation from the perspective of physical therapy. Now, my background is in cell and molecular biology with a minor in chemistry. So that means I'm one of the people that might be uniquely suited to talk about this from a cell-to-cell standpoint. Now, I'm going to do my best to keep this wave top and not delve too deep into the weeds, just because I know that the minute I do that, 90% of people won't care, and I will lose the audience of people that I can affect. So with that in mind, I'm going to try and keep this general and yet applicable. So let's start with what inflammation looks like on a cell-to-cell level, the most basic level. Have you ever wondered why tissues swell, why pain suddenly ramps up, or what's actually happening inside of your body after you roll your ankle, you tear a meniscus, you strain a muscle? This is the episode in the series that is for you. Oh, and also, please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share this as I am learning how to navigate the American labyrinthine, Byzantine healthcare system in order for us all to learn and grow. Thank you so much. So first, let's start with what is inflammation. Now, one of the terms you might hear your physical therapist use is edema, which just means swelling, right? It means fluid, excess fluid is in the area. A lot of times we think of inflammation as something that is bad, but simply it is a biological communication system that is designed to help heal and repair your body to get you back to doing what you need to do. It's the body's first response to an injury or stress. It's designed to protect, repair, and alert neighboring cells. Now, inflammation on its most basic level, if I remember correctly, should take about 14 days to completely resolve for most tissues if it's a very minor injury, which means at the best case, for example, if you had a paper cut, you're looking at 14 days, 2 weeks before complete healing. Now, this changes if you're sick. I don't want you to think about this as a universal principle. For example, if you had a bacterial or viral infection, that's a different process in terms of healing. This is in terms of strain, cut, what we would call an insult to the tissue. And the shortest that you're looking at is 14 days of healing. That doesn't mean that you will not have function for 14 days, which is an important distinction. It means it will take 14 days for full and true healing to return. Now, let's get into what actually sparks inflammation. Damaged cells will release something called damage-associated molecular patterns. One of the other things that it's called, if I remember correctly, is going to be cytokines. Now, these are going to be basically cell signals, so little proteins or hormones that are released that the cell is sending out to communicate that something is going on. It's usually a sign of what the cell is suffering from, though not always. But it's basically trying to call attention to the immune system hey, I've been damaged or I've been infected or something has happened near me, I'm calling for help. Now, there's a whole bunch of different types, right? We know that there's these things called histamines. That's why we take antihistamines when we have an allergic reaction. Histamines is one of the things that can make allergic reactions way worse. There's a ton, a whole ton of things we could delve into here, from kinins to interferons to interleukins to chemokines, all the above. All we need to know is that there's a lot of proteins, there are a lot of cell signals that are being released, and the cells are communicating, which in and of itself is a little bit of a novel concept for most people. Most people don't think their cells actually talk to each other, right? It's not something that you would really think about. But now that you might be thinking about it a little bit deeper, it just makes sense. If you're a neighbor, if you're neighboring a cell, you might reach over and ask the cell how it's doing once in a while. Because the last thing you want to find out is that your neighbor next to a tumor and it's coming for you next, for example. So the cells talk to each other. When a pathogen gets into a tissue, for example, or a cell, it releases a pathogen-associated molecular pattern. Now, all of these associated molecular patterns are basically things, again, that the immune system is looking for constantly, and once it finds it, will destroy it. So if a cell is saying, I'm damaged beyond repair, the immune cells will come in and kill it. And what they're trying to do is they're trying to make space for new healthy tissue, new healthy cells to take over. It's the same with pathogen-associated molecular patterns. We won't go into the types of immune cells that are coming in here and doing the destruction, but suffice to say that kind of like after a natural disaster where there's a whole bunch of ruins of houses and all those things, the construction crews have to come in and decide if the house is worth saving or not. And if they decide the house is worth saving, they refurbish it. They let it recover. If they determine the house is not worth saving, they bulldoze it and they build a new house on top of it. That's kind of what's going on here. The idea is that your body wants to use energy effectively and efficiently in order to determine which cells should live and which ones should not. There's a whole bunch of cascades that get set off because of this. There's the histamine cascade, there's prostaglandins, sorry, and there's cytokines, which I touched on earlier, but there's a bunch of pathways. And what this is like a series of cell signals that go from cell to cell to more regional to even sometimes systemic, that is across the entire body, in order to do things. And some of these cell signals increase healing times. Some of them increase, a whole bunch of them actually increase how much seepage there is out of the local blood vessels, because a lot of your immune cells and a lot of nutrients and stuff live, or they're moving through the arteries and through the capillaries and through the veins and stuff. So how do you increase healing? Well, you have to go in there and make the walls of those blood vessels more permeable. You have to make the gaps between them bigger so more things can seep out. And that means more nutrients and more cells, more traffic, more construction crews can get into that area where the damage has been. And that's how those cell signals work. But to us, as a human, looking at our injured limb, it looks like fluid swelling, and it hurts and it's puffy, and a lot of times it's warm, right? So on the molecular level, that was us backing up to the whole looking as a human at our own limb. At the cell-to-cell level, even inside the cell level, molecular level, there's this messaging system going on. And this is happening, of course, at the nucleus of the cell, where it turns on inflammation genes, which help regulate which proteins are produced in response to an injury. Cells that are around the injury usually start producing the most cell signals and enzymes, and this creates a cascade effect. So, of course, the ones that are closest to the injury are talking the most, complaining the most, asking for help the most, and then it kind of seeps out from there. So your entire tissue that has been injured, strained, bruised, or whatever is complaining the most. It's asking for the most help. It's the cells that are affected the most, complaining the most, sending out the most signals. So that just makes good sense. Most injured, most likely to talk, most likely to ask for help. But this also means that it might be the most tender, because this is the epicenter of where all that signaling is going on. Now, real quick as a side tangent, In addition to all of these cell-to-cell signaling pathways, all these hormones, all these cytokines, all these cell signals being released, which are going to increase, again, the blood flow to the area, which means it will increase the number of immune cells going in there and eating up the dead tissue or the dead cells, which is not going to feel comfortable. It's going to feel even more inflammatory, right? Even while all this is going on, the brain is actually also remodeling itself. There's a part of the brain called the homunculus, um, that dedicates literal space on the surface of your brain to a map of your human body. And what it does is when an injury occurs, it rewrites part of your brain to have an increased resolution on whatever part of your body was hurt. So if you hurt your ankle, your body will, your brain will literally go in and increase the the designated part of itself that is assigned to monitoring your body for injury. It will rewrite part of itself to now amplify any sort of cell signaling coming from your ankle. So this is a little bit of a double whammy. On the cell-to-cell level, you have all this inflammation, all this cell signaling, all these messengers going out saying, I'm hurt, I'm hurt, I'm hurt. I need more blood flow. I need more cells. I need something's going to break down the tissues, which is going to lead to increased immune response, increased swelling and edema. It's going to be hot. Well, not hot, but it should be warm and it should be puffy. And that means all this remodeling is starting to get ready to go on. And at the same time, on the macro level, your brain is now paying hyper close attention to anything going on to this joint. So it's a little bit of a twofer going on there. And part of that is driven by the cell signaling, right? Because every time that your brain's nociceptors are tripped saying pain, 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 it's going to zero in on where it's having the pain because it's interested in surviving and it wants to pay extra close attention to anything that could be potentially life-threatening. Now, zooming back in, the neighbor-to-neighbor communication, like we talked about, is the cells are talking to each other, especially when you think of cells within the same sort of tissue. So skin cells are going to talk to skin cells because they're all sitting right next to each other, right? It might be a little bit harder for a skin cell to talk to a muscle cell because that's crossing some tissue boundaries. But when you have the immune cells now who are permeating everything, they're talking to everyone. Because they're going in and interrogating, saying, are you injured? How injured? How bad? Can you fix yourself? You can't fix yourself? Okay, let's just eat you up and be done with this. Oh, you can fix yourself. Great. Oh, is there any viruses or bacteria that happen to get in here while this injury occurred? No? Great. Okay. Let's still keep rolling and keep checking everybody, making sure everybody's doing okay. Now, while this is all going on, what gets recruited to the area, depending on what was injured, was cells that are going to come in and lay down more soft tissue, like fibroblasts. You can tell like they make fibroblasts, or osteoblasts, which are going to come in and make bone, right? So if you have a bone injury, you're going to have bone blasts coming in and laying down new bone. If you have some sort of soft tissue injury, you're going to have fibroblasts coming in to make new soft tissue. It just makes sense. Now, the thing that they're going to want to lay down is collagen, which is going to end up resulting likely in scar tissue. This is important because the fibroblasts are going to come in once the initial insult has been cleaned up, because they're going to start laying down new tissue everywhere, which is why scar tissue can be so sticky sometimes. You've ever heard anybody that's been to physical therapy and they said that they had scar tissue massage? One of the reasons why is we as PTs want to go in there and make sure that we don't let a scar create a contracture and limit the range of motion a patient can have, because these fibroblasts are going to go in there, and if they're not put under any tension and the joint or the muscle isn't moving, they're going to make it pretty darn restrictive. So part of the PT's job is to go in there and manually, using the hands, move that tissue around to make sure the fibroblasts know that this area is still mobile, still working, and they don't have to lay down so much collagen that they're going to have to restrict motion completely. And that's going on cell to cell, because the fibroblasts are going in and saying, okay, where is the edge of the damage? Okay, the damage begins here and the healthy tissue begins here. I'm going to start here and start working this way. And the interesting thing about fascia, which holds like muscle in place and soft tissue in place, is it's omnidirectional. It doesn't run like a stake. It doesn't run in striations. Now, muscle runs in striation, but the fascial fibers do not. The fascia actually runs in every single which direction. That's why they call it omnidirectional. It's running everywhere. And the fascia also loves water, which is probably one of the reasons why, biologically speaking, the human body has so much swelling when an injury happens. It's making sure there's excess fluid available for the fascia, the new fascia that's being laid down, to absorb and to be extra effective. Um, Now, while all this is going on and the fibroblasts are laying down new tissue, you can see how important it is to healthfully, or healthfully, what sort of word is healthfully, to safely and under the guidance of a medical professional, begin gently loading the tissue. Because if you take the tissue away from any sort of load at all, the fibroblasts are going to be encouraged to lay down the most restrictive fascia that they can without any sort of stimulus, without any sort of idea of what the tissue actually does. The fibroblasts are not geniuses. They're just a construction crew going in and fixing a neighborhood. They have no idea where the neighborhood fits in the rest of the grand scheme of things. It has no idea if it's a financial district, if it's a oh man, what's another? It's a financial district versus a residential district versus a sewage treatment plant. It has no idea where it's at unless the cells around it communicate it to it specifically. Hey, I'm a nerve, for example. Don't put any fascia on me. That's going to be causing impingement later. Unless the cells tell exactly what it is, all that the fibroblasts are interested in going in is replicating whatever was around them and then laying that collagen down to fix it. The other cells in the area, so your skin cells, for example, now they're the ones that are going to be propagating themselves. They go, I'm a skin cell. I make more skin cells. And skin cells are going to go over here because we are going to reclaim the spot where skin cells used to be. The skin cells are having that conversation. The muscle cells are having that conversation. But the fibroblasts are just kind of going in there and trying to recreate any fascia they can. And they're going to put down more because, one, the cell signaling is driving them to go that way. And two, I think there's a little bit more of a macro level thing, though I can't prove it, that the human body goes, this is an area of high stress. I need more fascia there. I need something a little bit more to help handle the stress of whatever this was. If it was an ankle sprain, I need more scar tissue. I need more stability, so I need increased fascia. I think there's a little bit more of a macro level communication going on there than just a simple local, the fibroblasts go crazy and lay down a whole bunch. But I could be wrong. So anyway, all that's going on, that becomes a coordinated teamwork. Like I said, the skin cells are making more skin cells and they're not getting in the way of the fibroblasts. The fibroblasts are making more fascia, but they're not getting in the way of the skin cells. And the muscle cell is going back in and making more muscle and trying not to get in the way of anybody else. So there is a coordinated teamwork there, and they are all talking to each other by bumping into each other, just saying, who are you and where are you going? But there is still the possibility, and it does happen quite often, that the fibroblasts will go into spaces that they shouldn't go, in theory, technically, and put down scar tissue where it's a little bit excessive. So why does all this matter for rehab? Well, kind of like I hinted, it matters because we need to go in and sufficiently load the tissue to make sure the fibroblasts and the newfound fascia are being appropriately mobilized and not becoming excessively restrictive. But here's the crazy thing. Doesn't that mean that a physical therapist is going in and encouraging cell-to-cell signaling with their hands using pressure, right? If they're going in and doing scar mobilization or soft tissue mobilization, or going in and trying to increase the mobility of the fascia, doesn't that mean they're participating in cell-to-cell signaling? And I would argue the answer to that is yes, which is revolutionary. That will get you laughed out of a lot of places. If you say, I, as a cell, or as a as a cell biologist, as a physical therapist, and influencing the cell-to-cell communication and biochemistry of your body. Some doctors are going to go, well, yeah, just by touching another human being, you're technically making that happen. Others would laugh you out of the room and say, no, you are not. You are way beyond your depth, PT. But as someone who has a background in cell and molecular biology, yes, it's true. When you work on somebody's tissues with your hands, you are changing the local cell signaling pathways, cell-to-cell communication, and you're also impacting the viscosity of the fluid of their cells. So this is also one of the reasons why you hear that conversation of meat versus rice, right? Rice meaning rest, ice, compress, and elevate, versus movement. I think it's movement, exercise, analgesia, and treatment. Because the idea is going in there and getting it to move as it can. That way the fibroblasts know they're in a dynamic environment and not a static environment where movement's not going to happen. But the ice, used a little bit, goes in there and helps drive down excessive inflammation and also encourages increased blood flow when you take it away after like 5 minutes. That's what the studies say is ice massage of up to 5 minutes can increase blood flow to an area where sustained icing of 15 minutes can just drive down inflammation and temperature. Um, this also explains why inflammation is painful. Like I said earlier, it's all those cell messengers that are flaring up the entire area, and any nerves in the area are picking that all up and running it straight back to the brain, which is then leading to the rewriting of the homunculus, which is then making the brain pay extra attention to this area because it's trying to determine if this is life and threat or a threat to mobility in the future. And this all becomes a perpetual cycle. Because keep in mind, pain coming to the brain can now start activating other things like epinephrine, norepinephrine, cortisol. Now you're stressed because you're worried about your hurt ankle. Is it hurt worse than you think? And now all of a sudden you have a systemic pro-inflammatory or anti-inflammatory response going on. Your breathing can increase. It's a whole pathway, right? We could go down that way, but we're not going to. But the inflammation is painful, and it's painful for two reasons. The local cell response, right, which becomes a little tissue response, which the nerves pick up, and then also the brain possibly rewriting itself to pay extra attention. That's a little bit of pain neuroscience, which is a little bit beyond the scope of this, but you can see how on the local level to the tissue level, it can jump to the brain and all that becomes more painful. But the core takeaway is that PTs are not trying to eliminate your inflammation. We're trying to reduce it, and we're also trying to guide it. So that way the body, one, doesn't get stuck in a chronic pain state. And it doesn't get stuck in a dysfunctional state either, because we don't want the brain to think this region is going to be painful forever. And everything that ever touches this, say, ankle is painful forever. So you have to go in and do movement and exercise and treatment and a lot of manual therapy to help re-educate the brain and the nerves and everything else in the area. Hey, this is okay. And then we don't want to lead to a dysfunctional state. We don't want the ankle to be immobile for 18 months. We want the ankle to be able to start moving again and accept load as it's able to in a safe way to encourage strength and movement to return to function. So today, very cursory, very wave top, there is a lot more depth that I could go into here, and you can message me if you want me to. We looked at the inflammation on a cell level that can lead to cell-to-cell communication, that can lead to tissue-level communication. And we looked at the spark that helps kick off the healing process, which is that communication, the damage-associated molecular proteins leading to the cytokines in the cell signaling, and then the swelling, and the increased perfusion, and so on. In the next episode, we'll zoom out, and we'll look at what happens when all of these microscopic events scale up to the tissue level. The swelling that changes actual tissue viscosity, like muscles. We'll take a look at how that fascia gets stiff and hypomobile. And we'll take a look at what that means for movement. Hint, hint, it's not good. So thank you for tuning in to the World's Okayest Physical Therapist podcast, this mini series on inflammation. I hope that you enjoyed today's episode. Again, please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, especially if you liked the series. Now, everybody stay healthy, stay fit, and stay awesome. And I will catch you all in the next episode.